Broken heart, everyone thought it was just a joke, until Jungkook finally told the truth. The laughter shattered before anyone realized why. Jungkook lowered the microphone with trembling fingers, the bright concert lights reflecting in his eyes as thousands of fans continued laughing at what they believed was another one of his playful remarks. His lips curved into a smile that looked convincing from a distance, but anyone standing close enough could have seen how tightly his jaw was clenched. "I guess no one ever notices when I'm serious." The sentence disappeared beneath another wave of cheers. Someone backstage chuckled. "There he goes again," one staff member whispered. "He's always teasing." Jimin smiled automatically, believing the moment would pass like countless others before it. Taehyung leaned against the stage entrance with folded arms, shaking his head affectionately. Even the members who knew Jungkook better than anyone had grown accustomed to his habit of disguising uncomfortable emotions behind playful words. Because that was what he always did. Or at least, that was what everyone believed. The performance ended beneath exploding fireworks that painted the night sky in silver and violet. The audience roared as the members bowed together, their hands linked in gratitude. Cameras captured radiant smiles, warm embraces, and joyful laughter. None of them captured the instant Jungkook quietly slipped his in-ear monitors into his pocket, instead of handing them to the crew. None of them noticed that he walked off stage alone. The hallway behind the arena smelled faintly of fresh paint and cold metal. Crew members hurried past carrying equipment while managers discussed schedules for the next city. Everything felt ordinary. Except Jungkook had stopped walking. He stared at a vending machine, humming softly against the wall. His reflection looked exhausted. Dark circles rested beneath eyes that had forgotten what peaceful sleep felt like. His shoulders remained perfectly straight, a habit developed after years of convincing himself that standing tall meant staying strong. He reached into his pocket. A folded piece of paper, worn around the edges. He unfolded it carefully. It was filled with tiny handwriting. Not lyrics. Not choreography notes. Not a schedule. A list. The first line read, "Things I wanted to tell everyone." Every sentence below it had been crossed out. He smiled bitterly. So maybe not today either. His phone vibrated. "Jimin, where are you?" Jungkook stared at the screen for several seconds before typing. "Coming." He never pressed send. Instead, he folded the paper once more and slid it back into his pocket. A memory surfaced without warning. Years ago. A practice room filled with laughter. Teenage Jungkook had collapsed dramatically onto the floor after another, exhausting rehearsal. "I think one day I'll disappear," he joked while breathing heavily. The older members laughed. "Don't scare us like that." "I mean it." More laughter. Jungkook laughed too. It had been easier than explaining why he sometimes felt invisible despite standing in the center of every stage. Since then, he had repeated similar jokes countless times. "I'll quit one day. I'm fine. You guys don't need to worry about me." Every single sentence had been accepted as humor. Every single one. The dressing room buzzed with conversation when Jungkook finally entered. Managers discussed tomorrow's interviews. Stylists packed clothing into garment bags. Someone ordered late-night food. The members relaxed on sofas, laughing over videos fans had already uploaded from the concert. Jimin looked up first. "There you are, we thought you got lost." Jungkook forced another smile. "I almost did." Taehyung laughed. "See, another joke." Everyone smiled. Everyone except Jungkook. He quietly sat near the corner, watching his friends fill the room with warmth and familiar chaos. He loved them. more than they would probably ever understand. That love was exactly why he had hidden everything for so long. He feared becoming another burden. He feared changing the way they looked at him. He feared discovering that if he finally spoke honestly, nothing would change. Across the room, Jimin noticed something unusual. Jungkook wasn't humming. Whenever Jungkook felt comfortable, he unconsciously hummed unfinished melodies under his breath. Tonight. Silence. Jimin frowned. You okay? Jungkook answered automatically. I'm good. Another lie polished smooth through years of repetition. Later that night, rain began falling against the hotel windows. The city lights blurred behind streams of water. Unable to sleep, Jungkook stepped onto the empty balcony wrapped in a gray hoodie. Cold air brushed against his face. For the first time all day, he allowed the smile to disappear completely. His breathing became uneven. The pressure inside his chest refused to fade. His phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message. It was an old voice recording. Without thinking, he pressed play. His younger self filled the night. If you're listening to this years later, I hope you're happier. He closed his eyes. The recording continued. If you're still pretending everything is okay, please stop. Jungkook covered his mouth. His younger voice sounded hopeful. Braver than he felt now. A quiet knock interrupted him. He quickly stopped the recording. Jungkook. Taehyung. You awake? Jungkook wiped his eyes before opening the balcony door. Taehyung studied him carefully. You've been acting strange. I'm tired. That's not it. Silence stretched between them. Rain tapped gently against the railing. Taehyung had always been unusually observant. He noticed the smallest details. The shortened laughter. The distracted gaze. The untouched meals. The long pauses before answering simple questions. He stepped closer. You know. His voice softened. You don't always have to make us laugh. Jungkook looked away. I know. No. Taehyung shook his head. I don't think you do. The words landed heavily. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Jungkook whispered something almost too quiet to hear. What if I've been asking for help this whole time? Taehyung blinked. What? Jungkook laughed softly. Not because anything was funny. Because he had almost said it. Almost. He shook his head. Forget it. You were joking. Another pause. Jungkook stared into the rain until everything became blurry. Then with a calmness that frightened even himself, he answered. No. It was never a joke.
Taehyung did not answer immediately. The rain continued to drum softly against the balcony railing, each drop sounding impossibly loud in the silence that had settled between them. Jungkook's final words lingered in the cold night air, refusing to disappear. No, Jungkook had said, it was never a joke. For the first time in years, Taehyung realized he did not know what to say. He simply looked at the youngest member standing before him. Jungkook's shoulders were still squared out of habit, but the strength he always projected had begun to crack. His fingers trembled almost imperceptibly inside the sleeves of his oversized hoodie, and his eyes, usually bright with quiet determination, looked unbearably tired. How long? Taehyung finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook smiled weakly. I don't remember. Taehyung frowned. Try. Jungkook rested both hands on the balcony railing, feeling the cold metal beneath his palms. I think, he began slowly, it started when I realized everyone laughed whenever I said something painful. He let out a quiet breath. So I kept saying painful things as jokes. His words struck Taehyung harder than he expected. Memories surfaced one after another. Practice rooms, interviews, live broadcasts, award ceremonies. Jungkook casually saying he was exhausted. Jungkook joking that nobody would notice if he disappeared for a while. Jungkook laughing after every sentence. Every single time everyone, including Taehyung, had laughed with him. Not because they didn't care. Because they believed that was exactly what Jungkook wanted. I thought, Taehyung admitted, you were protecting us from worrying. I was. Jungkook nodded. But I was also hoping someone would stop laughing. Another silence followed. Taehyung felt an unfamiliar weight pressing against his chest. He had always considered himself someone who paid attention. Yet somehow he had missed the most important thing. I failed you. Jungkook turned immediately. No, you did. No. His answer came sharper this time. You didn't fail me. Taehyung looked confused. I never gave any of you a real chance. He looked toward the city below. I became good at hiding. The confession sounded almost like an apology. I knew exactly how to smile. I knew exactly when to change the subject. I knew exactly how to make everyone laugh before they could ask another question. His voice grew quieter. I made sure nobody stayed worried for longer than 30 seconds. Taehyung slowly understood. Jungkook hadn't simply hidden his feelings. He had become an expert at making them invisible. Inside the hotel room, laughter echoed faintly through the closed balcony door. Someone had started another funny video. Jimin's unmistakable laugh drifted through the glass. Jungkook smiled instinctively upon hearing it. I love hearing them laugh. Taehyung noticed the contradiction. You always put everyone else first. I don't know how not to. The answer came without hesitation. It sounded less like a choice, and more like something carved into Jungkook's heart years ago. I thought, Jungkook continued, if everyone else was happy then maybe I'd eventually become happy too. Did it work? He laughed softly. I kept waiting. Taehyung felt his throat tighten. Rain soaked the sleeves of their hoodies, but neither of them moved. After several long moments, Taehyung quietly stepped beside Jungkook. He didn't offer advice. He didn't tell him to stay strong. He didn't insist everything would be okay. Instead, he simply stood there. The silence between them no longer felt empty. It felt shared. Jungkook noticed first. You're not saying anything. I'm listening. Those two words nearly broke him. His breathing became uneven. For years, Jungkook had rehearsed countless speeches inside his head. He imagined dramatic confessions, perfect explanations, carefully chosen words. But now that someone was actually listening, nothing came out. Only tears. He lowered his head, embarrassed. I'm sorry. Taehyung immediately shook his head. Don't apologize. I didn't want you to see me like this. I'm glad I finally do. Jungkook closed his eyes. The sentence carried no judgment. Only sadness. Only care. Only regret for all the years that had slipped by unnoticed. A gentle knock interrupted them. The balcony door slid open. Jimin stood there holding 2 cups of hot tea. He froze. Neither Jungkook nor Taehyung noticed him immediately. Jimin had never seen Jungkook crying like this. Not after injuries. Not after exhausting tour. Not after sleepless nights. His cheerful, dependable friend, the one who always comforted everyone else, was quietly falling apart beneath the rain. Jimin placed the cups on the nearby table without making a sound. Neither of them looked up. I heard everything. Jungkook's shoulders stiffened. He slowly turned around. For a moment nobody spoke. Jimin walked forward until only a step separated them. His eyes had turned red as well. You know what hurts the most? Jimin asked softly. Jungkook lowered his gaze. What? That you believed you had to carry all of this alone? Jungkook could not answer. Jimin reached out carefully, hesitating for only a second before resting a hand on Jungkook's shoulder. There isn't a single joke you ever have to make just to protect us. His voice trembled. If you're hurting... He paused, struggling to finish the sentence. Then let us hurt with you. For the first time in years, Jungkook did not force himself to smile. He simply stood there between two people who had finally stopped laughing long enough to hear what he had been trying to say all along. The rain continued to fall over the sleeping city, but inside the quiet balcony, something far more important had begun. Not a perfect healing. Not an instant solution. Just the fragile, frightening beginning of honesty.
The rain had almost stopped by the time the three of them returned inside. Warm light spilled across the hotel room, where the others were still talking about tomorrow's schedule. Laughter floated through the air as Jin teased Hoseok over a dance move from the concert, while Namjoon sat on the floor scrolling through fan posts with a quiet smile. The atmosphere felt so normal that Jungkook hesitated at the doorway. His chest tightened. A single thought echoed in his mind. If I walk in now, everything will go back to the way it was. For years, that had always happened. He would almost tell the truth. Someone would make a joke. He would laugh. And another year would pass. Jimin noticed him stop walking. He leaned closer and spoke so quietly that only Jungkook could hear. You don't have to pretend anymore. Jungkook nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Taehyung entered first. His expression was calmer than usual, but his eyes carried a seriousness none of the members failed to notice. Is everything okay? Namjoon asked, immediately sensing the unusual silence. Taehyung looked toward Jungkook before answering. No. The room became still. Even the television playing softly in the background suddenly seemed too loud. Jungkook wished someone would change the subject. He wished someone would ask about dinner. He wished someone would laugh. Instead, every pair of eyes turned toward him. Not with curiosity. Not with impatience. But with concern. It frightened him more than anything. He instinctively smiled. I'm fine. The sentence escaped automatically. The moment it left his lips, he realized what he had done. Again. Namjoon slowly stood. He had led the group through countless difficult moments over the years. Injuries, exhaustion, endless pressure. Yet something about Jungkook's voice made him feel this was different. You don't have to answer right away, Namjoon said gently. But don't answer out of habit. Jungkook's smile faltered. Out of habit. The words struck him because they were true. He had repeated, I'm fine, so many times that his mouth said it before his heart had a chance to speak. He lowered his eyes. Nothing came out. His breathing grew uneven again. Yoongi quietly muted the television. No one spoke. No one rushed him. No one filled the silence. For perhaps the first time since debut, the room allowed Jungkook enough space to find his own words. He slowly sat down on the edge of the sofa. His hands rested together so tightly that his knuckles had turned pale. I don't know when I started feeling like this. His voice was almost inaudible. I only remember trying harder every year. He looked around the room. Each face carried memories. People who had watched him grow from an awkward teenager into an adult. People he trusted more than anyone. I thought if I worked harder. He swallowed. I'd stop feeling afraid. No one interrupted. I thought if I smiled more, people wouldn't worry. I thought if I became stronger, I wouldn't need anyone. His eyes filled once again. But none of that happened. Silence answered him. Jin slowly sat beside Jungkook. Without saying a word, he placed a hand on his shoulder. A familiar gesture. One Jungkook had felt hundreds of times after difficult performances. Only this time, it carried something different. Not encouragement to endure, Permission to stop enduring. Jungkook looked at Jin. I don't even know why I'm crying. Jin smiled sadly. You don't always need a reason. Across the room, Hoseok quietly wiped his own eyes before anyone could notice. He remembered countless nights when Jungkook stayed behind to practice long after everyone else had gone to sleep. He remembered bringing him food that often went untouched. He remembered hearing laughter echo from the practice room, assuming Jungkook was enjoying himself. Now those memories looked different. Painfully different. Namjoon finally spoke. Do you remember something you told me years ago? Jungkook frowned slightly. No. You said you were scared of disappointing everyone. Jungkook stared at him. I remember telling you that. I do. Namjoon nodded. But I also remember something else. He stepped closer. I told you that you never had to earn your place here. A faint smile appeared on Jungkook's face. I never really believed you. Namjoon let out a quiet sigh. I know. The honesty of that answer caught everyone by surprise. I should have realized you still didn't believe it. Jungkook quickly shook his head. This isn't your fault. Maybe not. Namjoon's voice remained calm. But we're a family. He looked around at the others. If one of us has been carrying something this heavy alone, then all of us missed something. No one argued. The room filled with a quiet sadness, not because anyone blamed themselves, but because they finally understood how invisible loneliness could become. Jungkook reached into the pocket of his hoodie. His fingers brushed against the folded piece of paper he had carried all day. He hesitated. Then he slowly unfolded it. The paper was worn and creased from years of being opened and hidden again. Everyone watched in silence. What is that? Jimin asked softly. Jungkook looked down at the faded handwriting. I wrote this a long time ago. His thumb gently traced the first line. It was supposed to be everything I wanted to tell all of you. He laughed quietly, though there was no humor in it. I never had the courage. He held the paper in both hands. Every sentence had been crossed out. Every confession erased before it could ever be spoken. Jungkook took a slow breath. Then, for the first time since writing it, he began reading the words aloud, not as a performer standing beneath blinding lights, not as the cheerful youngest member everyone expected to see, but simply as someone who was finally allowing himself to be heard. His voice trembled with every sentence, yet it never disappeared. And for the first time, no one mistook the truth for another joke.
Jungkook unfolded the paper with such care that it seemed he was afraid the words themselves might break. The creases had softened after years of being opened, read in silence and folded shut again. The ink had faded in places, but every sentence remained painfully clear. He took a slow breath. I wrote this after one of our tour, he said quietly. I kept adding to it whenever there was something I wanted to tell all of you, but every time I thought about reading it, I crossed another sentence out. The room was completely silent. No phones, no television, no conversations from the hallway, only the soft hum of the air conditioner and the sound of Jungkook's unsteady breathing. He lowered his eyes to the first line. Sometimes I'm scared that the version of me everyone loves isn't the real me. His voice trembled. I'm afraid that if I stop smiling, people will stop recognizing me. He paused, swallowing hard. So I smile even when I'm too tired to remember why. A heavy silence settled over the room. No one looked away. Jungkook continued. When I make jokes about disappearing, I'm actually wondering whether anyone would notice that I'm asking for help. His hands shook so violently that the paper rustled. I hated myself after writing that, he admitted. It sounded selfish. Namjoon slowly shook his head. It sounds lonely. Jungkook looked up, surprised. For years he had expected someone to tell him he was overthinking. No one did. Instead, he found nothing but understanding in their eyes. He looked back at the paper. I don't want anyone to feel responsible for my sadness. That's why I keep pretending it doesn't exist. Another pause. If everyone is smiling because of me, then maybe that's enough. His voice finally broke. I really believed that. A tear slipped down his cheek before he could wipe it away. I thought as long as everyone else was happy, it didn't matter what happened to me. The words echoed through the room. Jin covered his mouth with one hand. Hosok stared at the floor, unable to hide the tears gathering in his eyes. Yoongi quietly removed his glasses and rubbed them with the edge of his sleeve, giving himself a moment to regain his composure. Taehyung closed his eyes. Every memory now carried a different meaning. Every bright smile. Every playful joke. Every time Jungkook insisted he was fine. They had all been pieces of a truth hidden in plain sight. Jimin slowly walked across the room until he stood directly in front of Jungkook. You know what I remember? He asked softly. Jungkook looked at him. I remember all the times you stayed behind after practice because you wanted everyone else's performance to be perfect. A faint smile appeared through Jungkook's tears. I wanted us to do well. I know. Jimin nodded. I also remember all the times you secretly left drinks outside our doors when you thought we were too tired. Jungkook looked embarrassed. You noticed that? I noticed. Jimin smiled sadly. But I never realized you were doing those things while carrying all of this by yourself. Jungkook lowered his head. I didn't want anyone worrying. You gave us years of your strength, Jimin replied. You don't have to protect us from your weakness. Those words settled deep inside Jungkook's heart. He had spent so many years believing vulnerability would make him a burden. Yet no one in the room looked disappointed. No one looked uncomfortable. They simply looked heartbroken that he had carried the weight alone for so long. Namjoon stepped forward. There is one thing I need you to promise. Jungkook looked at him. If you ever feel like hiding behind another joke. He paused. Let one of us hear the truth first. Jungkook stared at him for several seconds. His eyes filled again. I don't know if I can do that right away. You don't have to. Namjoon smiled gently. You've already taken the hardest first step. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The clouds slowly drifted apart, revealing a pale moon above the sleeping city. Its light filtered through the hotel window, filling the room with a quiet calm that had been missing for years. Jungkook folded the paper once more. This time he did not hide it back inside his pocket. Instead, he placed it carefully on the table in the middle of the room. It no longer felt like a secret that belonged only to him. It had become something they would carry together. For the first time in a very long while, Jungkook realized that telling the truth had not pushed the people he loved away. It had brought them closer. The silence that followed was no longer filled with fear. It was filled with understanding, patience, and the quiet promise that none of them would mistake his pain for laughter again.